Good evening and thank you very much. Clicking buttons, doing things, looking at lights. Hi there, my name is Christian Fludder. Thank you so much for joining me. Tonight I'd like to just do a quick little talk about milk. Recently I posted a picture on Facebook and there was a bit of interest in regards to how milk and unsettled behaviour tie in together. And so tonight I thought I'd just go through a little bit talking about how that could actually happen. You see, we kind of go, milk, surely milk is one of these things that babies need to be having on a regular basis. And yes, they do. Breast milk is very, very important. But one of the things is, we are designed for breast milk. Now, that's not to say that people who have difficulties with breastfeeding are doing the wrong thing, okay? This is very much not saying that at all. There are plenty of options when it comes to formula, and the things that we put in our mouths can actually influence what comes out through the breast. This was the paper that I posted in a part of that, on Instagram and Facebook recently. It was a 2020 paper, and it's looking at the percentage of children who experience unsettled behaviour or rashes or things out of the ordinary as a response to cow's milk protein allergy. Now, what they were stating is that not a lot of people actually have genuine cow's milk protein allergy. And I found this really quite intriguing because quite often in clinic, I see quite a few kids who come in and have a very positive response upon removal of dairy from either maternal or from their own diets. And this raises the question as to why. Why is it that milk can create such a response inside our gut? So let's break it down into a couple of little factors. First things first, human breast milk. Oh, first things first, clicky buttons, and we do the thingy with the what's it. And that's it there, clicking buttons. So the first things that we want to be looking at here is we've got a human. That's not a good selection of pen. We've got a human. And then we've also got a cow. Okay. Now, what is the difference between these two? I mean, obviously there's a fair bit of difference between these two, but one of the key factors is the production of breast milk itself. Breast milk itself. You see, cows and humans produce different types of milk. So inside breast milk, there are two major proteins that we want to be playing with here. The two major proteins, we're looking at casein and whey. Okay. Now, in humans, we have a very particular ratio. In humans, the casein to whey ratio is 80% whey to 20% casein. Now, this is important because that means we are a whey-dominant breast milk. Now, the problem is cow's milk is not this. Cow's milk is a little bit different. It is 80% casein and 20% whey. Now, if we break down casein even further, casein comes in two major types. So we've got there's other types of casein as well, but the ones that are very well known are the A1 and A2 proteins. You've probably heard of the A2 milk brand previously. Well, this is where the A2 milk brand actually stems from. It stems from this breakdown of the two different alpha proteins, or the A proteins within casein itself. Now, A1 and A2 react in different fashions. And what A2 milk company have done is removed the A1 milk protein, A1 casein protein from their milk. And this reduces the amount of kids who actually respond to it. See, in most children, or in most people, majority of people respond to the A1 protein. I believe it's something like 85% will react to that one, whereas only 15% will react to A2. This is why we're able to make that, or A2 make that statement of you'll feel better on A2. It's because we're not reacting to the A1 protein. Now, A2 protein, because it's less volatile inside our gut there, it doesn't tend to create so much of an issue, but the issue comes from this guy here, A1 protein. Okay, now what happens is when we start to ingest proteins, when we start to ingest particular substances, such as, my apologies, I clicked a thing. When we ingest a particular protein, such as this A1 protein, if we have a bit of a reaction to that, we actually start to create an inflammatory response inside our gut. Okay, now inside our gut, we've got these wonderful little patches. Okay, so they're like these little things, and they're called patches. Now it's either pia or pipers. One of those two. Pretty sure it's pia patches. This is what I get for doing this one. Who chooses to do a live stream on the first night of homeschooling? Whose brains are frazzled? Yes, that was probably a bit of an oversight on my part, but hey, let's keep on going. So these patches are the point at where allergens, such as a milk protein, will come along and get absorbed by the body. Now, if we've got a bit of a reaction inside, if we've got a bit of a reaction to that particular protein, our immune system starts to react to that one, okay? And a particular subset of our immune system called Th1 cells start to react to those little bits of proteins that creep their way through, and it causes an upregulation of inflammation, okay? Now, the problem with inflammation is inflammation does a couple of things. Firstly, it tries to attract more cells to that particular region. It starts to cause a loosening of the junctions within our gut. Now, if these are nice and tight and these become a little bit wider, this is something known as leaky gut syndrome. Okay, in adults we call it leaky gut syndrome. Now you see in a neonate or a newborn, their gut hasn't fully sealed up yet. They haven't had that opportunity to fully close over. They haven't had stuff go through. They haven't had their full gut inoculation. That comes through with breastfeeding, that we start to get that gut microbiome developing, and it starts to close things up again. Now, if we've got a system that's already a little bit susceptible to this kind of aggravation or insult, and then we introduce a protein that starts to create a further issue, what happens is that inflammation creates a leakiness to our tight junctions, which unfortunately causes these pia patches to widen up. Now the problem with this is, as those gaps keep on widening up, I forgot to click the thing, but that's okay. As these gaps keep on widening up, more and more proteins that would typically not have gotten through start to get through. Our immune system's a little bit hyperactive. It starts to detect these extra proteins and it starts to react to those as well. The next thing we know is we've got a child who becomes reactive to just about everything. And that becomes the mum who says, oh, look, I've cut out milk, I've cut out dairy, I've cut out chocolate, I've cut out cheese, I've cut out this, I've cut out onions, I've cut out garlic. And they start to rattle off a whole list of different things that they can no longer ingest because baby's reacting to it. And it all could have started from something as simple as this. And it's just created this cascade inside their system. Now, when we get this increase of inflammation, what else happens? Let me just click the thing again. What else happens? This inflammation, it also starts to attract other Th cells. Okay, so we start to get an increased response of Th17 cells. We start to get an increased Th9 cells. We start to get increased, oops, got to do the increasey bit thing first, increased Th22 cells. Okay, now these cells, these particular subtypes of the Th system, our immune system, do different things. Okay, so this one here is just like the global upregulator, if you will. It will cause everything to become a little bit more pronounced. It'll cause an increased response in that inflammation. It will start to release more cytokines. The next thing we know is we've got a system that's very, very overactive. These guys work on different aspects. I always get these ones confused, so I'm just going to bunch them together. They cause an increased inflammation in the lungs, and of the skin. Now, increased inflammation in the lungs and the skin. this becomes really quite interesting. Now, if I've got an inflammation going on inside my lungs, my brain says, you know what, I need to create a layer to help protect what's going on in there. There's just too much stuff coming through. I need to protect that. What can I create that will produce a nice layer? I've got it, mucus. And the body starts producing mucus. Now, this is very interesting because this then leads to that really congested, sniffly, snuffly, the baby who can't breathe properly at night. But when you listen to their lungs, everything's fine. It seems to be just all clogged up upstairs there. What else happens is this becomes the kid who gets really dry skin. Everything starts to become really reactive. They end up with cradle cap. They end up with a whole bunch of eczemic, atopic changes all over their system. And this could be a result of that upregulation of these, I did the thing where I forgot to change it over again, of these particular TH subsets. Now, that could be a bit, I forgot to do the thing again. Let me just click this button. I will get used to the whole live stream thing eventually, I'm sure of it. It's always entertaining when you're trying to get things right, and you still it's kind of like learning on the fly. So thank you for coming and learning along with me. It's been very entertaining. Anyway, where was I? I was talking about inflammation. So if we've then got all this dryness on the skin, this is where atopic dermatitis stems from. It's not something on the skin. Well, not always something on the skin. It can be something from the skin, but a lot of the time we see it's something that we've ingested, and it's created this upregulation of our immune system. Our immune system becomes very, very sensitized by it. So this could be a reason as to how milk may lead into this unsettled behavior. Who likes having their gut all inflamed? Now, that's the other thing as well. If the gut becomes inflamed, if the gut's got this upregulation of inflammatory things going on, you actually end up with swelling of those lymph glands inside our gut. Now, if I've got swollen lymph glands and I've got a lot of inflammation inside my gut, how does a baby with that show up? They don't like tummy stuff. Okay, they end up with gas pain or wind pain or bloating pain. How many times have you needed to really let one rip and you just held onto it for a long time and you start to get quite uncomfortable in your tummy? Imagine if your tummy was really quite bloated at the same time, not bloated, sensitized at the same time. That becomes painful. And these are the kids that are then kicking their legs every single which way and getting very uncomfortable. If you're very sore inside the gut, especially after swallowing a bunch of things, your brain says, you know what? I don't like eating this right now. Let's just get rid of it, please. And you actually start seeing a lot more reflux or vomiting style behavior. And now this then leads into other changes. We might start seeing changes in the esophagus, the food tube. We might see things like eosinophilic esophagitis. We can see a whole bunch of other things starting to stem up, and it may all stem from this simple milk sensitivity. Now, this is one possibility. Okay, there are many different options that could be going on at the same time, and this is where examination and history and all that kind of stuff are very important. But I'm hoping just to give you a bit of an insight as to how your child may end up with some of the symptoms that you may be seeing and how it might be resultant from cow's milk stuff. Now, this is why they do a few different things now with formulas, for instance. Now, one of the things that we do suggest to some parents is a trial of reducing the amount of milk that we're actually ingesting. If you're on a formula-based, if a formula-fed baby, then you might look at different types of formulas. You can look on the back of the tin, and often they'll say either it's 40% casein and 60% whey. You can then actually look for the particular brands, and often they're branded HA, which stands for hypoallergenic. And these guys here are often 100% whey. Okay, so you're still getting the protein that you require, but you're avoiding the casein protein that may be triggering off a lot of unsettled tummies. This is why I find it really quite interesting. Some brands of formula, they claim to be for comfort, yet they still contain a lot of casein. I find that very intriguing. Or if they don't contain casein, they contain a lot of soy-based products. So yeah. Formulas. My goodness, isn't it fun trying to find the right kind of formula when you've got a whole bunch of stuff going on inside your baby? But anyway, I hope this has been a bit of a great, or not a great, that's a bit of a self-inflation, isn't it? I hope this has been a bit of an informative session for you, and I hope that it helps to answer some questions that you may have. But if you have any other questions, or if there's anything you'd like to ask me, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Please shoot through any messages. You can send me an email. You can even give me a phone call. I'd be more than happy to take a chat, have a chat and discuss things further with you as well. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining me this evening, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Maybe next week, we'll see. We'll see if I'm still surviving after the whole homeschooling thing. Best of luck to you all. See you again soon. Bye now.